What's up, guys? This is Isaiah from Games, and this is episode number 10 of our Gaimoria Dev stream. I'm a little late. I said 5 o'clock here at 5:06. This has been another insanely busy day, and I'm just literally trying to scarf food down, like, just from the little time that I have in between doing things, so I hope you don't mind that I, eat things while I stream so I don't pass out in my chair, and then it will be a very humiliating stream. So yesterday, there was, I worked a lot yesterday. You guys didn't see the stream yesterday, of course, because I didn't have a stream. So I actually made a lot of changes to this map. Hi, Cherish. Such a cutie. I made a lot of changes to this map after, Monday's stream, and just looking at, thinking about, what would I have time for? What was my scope? How much animation would I have to do? How much design? How much code? Etc, etc. So what I did was I basically created this little Word document and kind of tallied up how many enemies I initially had for my enemy count. This is the current count, is 45, and this is after I have cut it twice. So for Monday's stream, I had 87 enemies, and that is a lot of enemies. So the way you can quantify that is if I have 87 enemies, I have a walk, an idle, a basic attack, and then for bishops, a spell casting animation cycle. So let's just say on average 3 animation cycles. And then each animation is about 4 to 5 frames. So I have 12 times 80 times at least 2, because if they're facing left or right, which ignore that. So at least we have 12 times 80. Something. So yeah, it came out to basically 1,000 or more frames of animation that I would have to do just to create all the enemies in the game. And that would take me an eternity. And so I tried hacking away at it to reduce how many enemies that there would be in game without being extremely detrimental to the diversity within the game. So what I did was I went through Secret of Mana, Seiken Densetsu 3, which is Secret of Mana 2, and then kind of made little notes of how many unique enemies they had and recolors, because recoloring is a way to basically make it feel like that there are more enemies without having to make something completely new, without having to reanimate, etc, etc. You just have a huge shift saturation. So that's what these recolor things are. So that's where I'll just actually pull it up for you. So you go to the enemy sheet here, you can go to even the first one probably, and you'll see duplicates. So you have this shaman guy. This is almost directly what I was going to be referencing for the forest bishop caster. You can see this is the same animation for all of them, except he just has a recolor. So instead of having to do 3 unique enemies for 3 different bishops, they just do 1 full animation set, and then they just go and do a huge shift saturation for extra enemies, depending on if they're more powerful in areas. You can see that for this entire sheet. They have 2 different kinds of this mimic ogre box, this knight chess piece, the swords, the wizards, everything. You got 3 kinds of wizards here, all out of 1 wizard animation. So that's what I had labeled as a recolor. So Seiken Densetsu 3 had 27 unique enemies, at least from what I had looked up. and they had 39 recolors. So that in the end came up to roughly 60 to 70 unique enemies throughout the entire game. And then for Zelda Link Between Worlds, they had about 70 unique enemies, so way more. And they had way more recolors. And that's the difference between this being a Super Nintendo era game, and then this game came out like 2 years ago. So you can see they did like 2 times the amount of work with creatures in about the same amount of time because they had a much larger team. And so for Gaimoria, there's no way that I could even match Secret of Mana. Because Seiken Densetsu 3 was like top for its time, which was like 1996. So SD3 was essentially, as I said, Secret of Mana 2. First Secret of Mana came out in 94, 93 or something like that, and then the second one came out never in the US but in Japan around 96 or 97. And they pretty much had their shit together. And they had a solid team making some of the best art for Super Nintendo ever. And so basically the best art that's ever been on Super Nintendo for an amazing game, this is what they were able to do. That's 27 unique enemies with 39 recolors. I still have not done like a Super Nintendo Zelda, the Link to the Past. I think it is, yeah, Link to the Past. I hadn't counted that, so that would be a little more accurate between these numbers, so that would be like a Super Nintendo era game versus Super Nintendo era game. But basically, I made this little note, like, I should not be shooting for 80-some unique creatures, because that's not only more the entirety of Secret of Mana 2, and more than Zelda made unique, that I would never get that done. If I did, it probably would take me like 3 years just to do all those animations. So I tried to reduce it as much as I could, as I said, without destroying what I had initially started thinking about for design and all that. So, looking at the map, if you watch the last one, I had about 10 to 12 per zone, and I really hacked the hell out of it to get it down to 6. So I pretty much reduced the amount of enemies per zone in half. You know, if I went from 80-something down to 40-something. So I was trying to be really aggressive with how many enemies I cut down. But I kept the design mentality in there, so the whole idea of there being a lot of swarmers for this zone, and then there being a lot of like rooks in this zone, still kind of carries through. But I just kind of tried to trim it. So I went from like 11 or 12 here to 7, and this is pretty much the most, tied with the forest, I believe, which is also 6. So you can see with the forest, I only have 1 swarmer, 1 knight, 1 bishop, and 1 rook. And I think that's okay, because what I want to do is I'll probably end up reusing the grasslands and autumnlands enemies into the other zones. So I can populate these into a couple of these areas just for adding diversity. But this is all just speaking about unique creatures. I could still do, say I had like this Rook A in Zone 1 for the forest. I could do a recolor of Rook A and make that Rook C for this zone, because we have a Rook B. I guess I don't have a Rook B anymore for here. So I could just have a stronger version of the Rook that was here in here. I could have it have a little bit more health and do a little bit more damage. So that kind of efficiency in design will go a very long way. So that's also why it's good to do this kind of stuff before you actually start making a game, because when you know, make your little notepad of notes and you're like, wow, why do I have like 80 80 some creatures or whatever in the game, you know, there's no way I'd ever be able to do that. So, yeah. Yay, Miss DGM is hosting us again. Only person that ever does it. I had a couple other people do it before, but she's special. She does it frequently. What else? I have a little bit of notes here. So yeah, I reduced all the amount of things in there. And then next thing that I did was I started updating the demon zones to have collectibles. Because I didn't have any collectibles before. Yeah, it's been about 3 weeks. So, thanks for coming in. For when you saw on Monday, there was basically nothing in here. And so what I did was I took this, the optional like hue shifting item, and I moved that into the demon zone for each thing. Like here as well. Here as well. But what I also did was I started thinking about the main upgrades that Anaya would get, because a lot of these zones focus on your pet upgrades, which is great. And the only real upgrade that Anaya gets is her heart pieces to increase her total health throughout the zones. And then again, looking at reference for the Zelda games, they have Link is able to get tunics that increase his defense, and he's able to get all sorts of other upgrades. So what I had done is I added these 3 things. So for each demon zone, for darkness, it's the tunic pieces. So if you get all 3, then that will essentially give Anaya a new tunic, which gives her 50% damage reduction from all sources. And it was very specific of why I put it in the darkness zone, because of how I was thinking that there would be 3 knights. And knights are extremely high damage dealers in relation to the zone of having a light radius and darkness issue. I'm thinking that the main difficulty with the darkness zone is you're going to be taking a lot of damage from things that are difficult to see. So it's going to be hard to dodge away from because you don't know it's there. So the buff that I have over here isn't going to make as much sense for that zone, and then the buff over here, we'll talk about those later. So I was like, okay, for this kind of zone, it would make sense if Anaya was able to get an upgrade that reduced all the damage she took by 50%. So those are the collectibles you'd be able to find in this area. In this zone, you would be able to upgrade your main weapon so that it added a very short stun when you swing, because this zone is focused on swarmers and buffers. Well, I'm glad Supreme DDT has been keeping in the loop. I'm going to take a bite of this sandwich. Anyways, I gotta chew my food and swallow it. That's the thing with being busy. You gotta like eat as you work. Almost done. Okay, so as we talked about, the storm zone differs from the other zones because it's going to be more of like a Zerg. Oh, that was something I want to talk about. Zergling stuff. So in StarCraft 2, you know, the Zerg are based on massive waves of enemies. So I'm thinking the Stormlands would be sort of like that. And then if you compare the Fluid Lands, that would be kind of like the Protoss. The Protoss are very tanky, and the Terran are pretty balanced. So that'd be like the Emberlands. So Stormlands is kind of like Zerg, where there's just tons of swarmers and pawns, and then you have the bishops that buff all those swarmers and pawns. And so that leads into why I wanted to have the flute upgrade for this demon zone, because the Demon Zone is the same thing, like it focuses on Swarmers and the Bishops. So I was thinking about like what would help Anaya in a condition where there's just ridiculous amounts of enemies. And to me, it would either be like more AoE damage, but that's not for Anaya, that's for your pets, or make her regular auto attack able to affect large swarms more easily. And because I don't want Anaya to be the main damage dealer, my idea is that if you collect all the things, then her attack will grant a short stun. So then she could, if there's a huge swarm of things coming after her, she could start swinging and she would be able to stun a bunch of them for maybe like a half second or 1 second, which would give her time to use her pets to use their AoE to kill the swarms. And then the final Demon Zone, I added this little like boots icon. And since this is focused on rooks, or like big heavy hitters, or not quite heavy hitters like a knight, but big tough guys that charge at you a lot, my thought is that since they have so much health, you're going to be spending a little bit more time fighting them, and you don't want to get hit by their charges, so it would be easier to fight those fights if it was easier for you to dodge. So that's why for the Blood Zone, with 3 boots, it would essentially grant you the double dodge distance. So, I'll do a little illustration with my mouse here. So if Anaya is... So if Anaya... This is huge. Oh, that's why. Anaya is here. Amazing drawings with the mouse right now. And then we have that gorilla I drew. Oh man, this is awful. Yeah. So that's the gorilla I drew yesterday but I was using my tablet yesterday, of course. Look at that booty. That is a twerking gorilla. I'm gonna keep it there because that's fantastic. So if the gorilla were to charge like that, and if we're in a zone that has a lot of rooks, essentially what the gorilla is, then it's going to be way more difficult for you to dodge out of the range of all these things, right? Because if Anaya's dodge only goes to like right here, and then that's where her dodge ends, if this one charges you and this one charges you at the same, or say all 3 charge you, no matter if you dodge up that way or you dodge this way, you're probably going to get hit by one of the outside charges, like drawing football plans here. So my idea behind it of having a lot of rooks in this kind of zone is that you would have the boots. I already talked about that. You would have the boots here that grant you double the distance on your dodge. So instead of only dodging out to here, Anaya would now be able to dodge out to here. That little game design trick there. So now, if you collect the boots, which is the collectible for the Blood Zone, keep minimizing, which deals with a lot of rooks that charge you often, if you get the collectibles, then it will make your life a lot easier. Do it again. To fight the things in the Blood Zone. Of course, it'll make it easier everywhere else, but it's specific to the zone because of the kinds of enemies that are in the zone. So, I hope that makes sense. So those were the main upgrades that I kind of added, which shouldn't really be too difficult. It's just a matter of like, when it comes to code, it's like, does Anaya have this equipped? Check yes or no. And then if yes, then 50% damage reduction. Same with all this stuff. It's really not too complex code-wise. And then the final thing that I hadn't really like implemented yet was when I started playing the Secret of Mana game again, Seiken Densetsu 3, Secret of Mana 2, which I'm gonna do for kind of like the last bit of the stream, so because I'm gonna start taking notes and explaining all that stuff. I'll actually just show you now. When you start attacking things, you get this little charge bar at the bottom. I dropped my sound down too, because I watched the stream from yesterday and it was way too loud, so I have it set to like super low, so it should be okay. And now I'm trying to save the fairy to start. That's how you skip it. Okay. When you start attacking, you have your regular attack, and you have this little bar down at the bottom that kind of starts charging up. Might not, probably won't, yeah, I couldn't demonstrate it here because there's not enough enemies. I'll save. I'm gonna do the last bit of the stream with this stuff, because there's notes I want to take and it's all relevant to the game design stuff I've been talking about the past couple episodes. Should be able to demonstrate it here. See, the animations in this game are way better. Alright, so now you can see this little green bar at the bottom. I have a charge bar, and if you press B in this game, or I'm thinking in Gaimoria, you'd hold A, so you just have A for Anaya. It gives you a stronger attack, and it does way more damage. So that was one more thing that I was thinking about adding to Gaimoria, because we want to have some boss incentives, and that will lead into another thing I added to the map yesterday. When you defeat the bosses, it wouldn't feel very good if you beat the boss and then you don't really get anything for it. So the first thing I started adding was this little compass. And I'll talk about that in a sec, but continuing this whole charge thing, if I had Anaya able to do like a level 1 charge attack, something really basic, like her regular attack doesn't do much damage, but then if she uses her charge attack for, you know, after she hits things a couple times, and that could make it feel cooler, feel more engaging. Yeah, I'll get into the music idea stuff in a bit too, because I started thinking about what kinds of music inspirations I'd want for what kind of fights and all that, so I'll show that in a bit. So one thing that would be cool for if you defeat a boss is if you get a collectible item, yeah, maybe like 3 out of 3, because we have 3 main zones, or maybe 4 out of 3. When you collect them all, it will add 1 level to Anaya's charge attack. So instead of doing like, as I showed in SD3 just now, where the character Duran, he like jumps in the air and whacks things harder, SD3 is really good with having a whole plethora of charge attacks based off of your character and then their class. There's 6 characters in the game and 6 classes per character, so there's 36 classes in that game, which is a huge level of complexity for just a Super Nintendo game. And every one of those has a different charge attack, so there's 36 different kinds of charge attacks in that game. And I'm thinking of maybe just having like 2 in Gaimoria. So it's just one more thing to make it feel like killing a boss is worth it. And then, so now describing this compass thing, because Gaimoria, my plan is going to be so much about exploring the land and finding all these power-ups, and then as you collect the power-ups you get stronger, rather than being like a RPG grindy game. These things are all going to be hidden. And the player is going to have to make the effort to go and try and find all the hidden areas to collect these things. And there's no way currently for the player to know if they have gotten everything or not. So I thought it would be a cool unlock is after you beat the boss for the zone, you collect this compass, and that reveals not the locations of the hidden items, but in your like pause menu, it will show if you have like X out of however many per section. So if you're in Stormlands 3 and you've already beaten the boss and you've collected the compass and you press start, then it would show like, oh, I've collected 3 out of 5. Or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6. Alright, I changed the number of these in each zone. I'll get to that in a sec. So it'd show you have like collected 3 out of 6 for the zone, so the player knows, okay, there's 3 more for me to collect here. And there's a heart piece somewhere for me to collect as well. So that's a kind of a neat way to encourage the player to further explore after defeating the boss to further upgrade their pet Sandania, all again as a reward for defeating the boss for the zone. And then it would have the same kind of inventory for this zone and this zone. So if you only got 1 here, it would say you have 1 out of 2. Got 1 here, it would say you have 1 out of 4. That's the same for all of them. So I have a little compass next to all the bosses as a personal note to myself that when you beat them, you'll have the ability to see how many out of how many per zone that you have to unlock. And I have that the same for the demon zone. So yeah, because I'm not a huge fan of grindy games. I love Zelda a lot, and I just like even the idea of how heart pieces work, how they're all hidden. And then playing a lot of like Yoshi games. Yoshi games is all about collecting. It's all about going to those, like, you have to search and find those difficult areas to find the flowers and the yarn balls, which is exactly what these are. So I'm referencing a lot of Nintendo-based games because they have really cool collectible mechanics that directly influence how powerful you or your pets are, without having to grind levels like an RPG. And then I had the idea here, I would put one of the extremely rare self-revive items. You can see it's at the top of the list for most hidden. I decided to put one of them right after the fluid boss or the grinning army boss because they're going to be so hidden that the player may not even know they exist. So if I made one of them available, quite obviously after defeating a boss, then the player may ask themselves, are there more? And you can see that there is 1 in the darkness zone, 1 in the suffering zone, and then 1 in the final forest. So you can see here after the boss for the forest zone 2, I have a couple extra things clumped, and I'll explain that now because of how I reordered the Mai creatures. So on Monday, what were my numbers? So my numbers for the Mai things originally was there would be 2 in zone 1, 3 in zone 2, and 5 in zone 3. But I changed those numbers to be 6, 4, and 2. And I took those out of the forest because I'm changing, you can see my notes I have up here, how many Mai it would take to get the first and second skill ups, and then how many it takes ultimately to get the final pet evolution. So by changing how many of the little Mai creatures are in each zone, what I have done is I have allowed for the player to find a total of 15 Mai in each zone, plus the grasslands and autumn's lands. So that means you can get both the upgrade for the first skill and the second skill, and still have 1 left over. So that means you don't have to collect every single one of them to get both of the skill upgrades. However, what that does is then if the player gets all of them outside, like say they get all 15 of the Ember Mayamai in here, but then they still have 5 more that they need to collect, which is where I have plus the forest times 5. So in the forest zone, we have 1 here, and 2 in here, which leads into why I have 1 of each after the optional boss. So if the character goes through and finds all the hidden items for the Mayamai, and they have 19 out of 20 for everything, for all the pets, and they only need 1 more to upgrade all of their pets to evolve, you have to defeat the optional boss. So that incentivizes the player to find all the hidden items and defeat the optional boss in the forest lands to evolve your pets. And if you do that, you can then go into the demon zones with stronger pets. So that's why I was saying Monday, like, you do all this thinking beforehand, you kind of push the numbers 1 or 2 this way or that way, so that it creates an interesting progression of power and design and balance as the player progresses through the game. So the player will never be able to fully evolve their pets before they go in the forest zone. They have to go in the forest zone to get all the final Mayamai. And they don't have to find every single Mayamai out here to get both of the pet skill upgrades. So that allows players to visit all the zones, get upgrades at a pace that they're okay with. They might even not only get their upgrades until they get into the forest. And then if they even defeat the optional boss, if they haven't collected all the hidden items in the other zones, that won't truly fully evolve them yet. Yeah, so that's all the Mayamai stuff. Let's see here. So I think that's the large majority of everything that I had changed with the map since Monday. You can see, like, all my numbers are way smaller. Keeping the design consistent, having swarmers and bishops for this zone, swarmers and bishops, lots of knights, then rooks, 2 rooks, and 2 rooks. So hopefully that's a more manageable number for me when I start going through here and thinking of, like, okay, what kinds of enemies do I need to make for this zone and all that. Oh yeah, we're gonna go play some board games tonight. So I'm probably only gonna stream for about another hour, but that's okay because really this is just a lot of recap on stuff that I've been working on the past couple days and notes that I've been taking to myself. So let's go to references. So after I created this list of me thinking about how many creatures I needed per zone to at least make the areas feel varied, have like interesting design mechanics for the enemies in the zones, and then be varied enough so that it doesn't feel like you're fighting the same kind of things over and over. I then started going and getting a bunch of references, and I started putting them into these separate folders. So, and then Spirit is old, so don't worry about that. So I have the Emberlands, Fluidlands, the Forestlands, Stormlands, the Grasslands and Autumnlands, and then the temples for Blood, Darkness, and Suffering. And then these are ones that would be shared. You can see I have this little note to where I have unique enemies for the Blood Zone, but then I have shared units. So I have this idea of there being like basically a Grim Reaper for all the Demon Zones, because I think Grim Reapers are cool. So that's what this thing is. Zoom in on it. This is the Wraith from Ragnarok Online. I got tons of references from Ragnarok Online. Fun old classic games some people may or may not have played. But their art is actually very impressive. The creatures are super cool. So I just saved a bunch of these gifts as inspiration and reference for me for when I start start creating the zone-specific enemies. These are all idle animations, which is even more perfect because one of the first things I'm going to be doing for each of the unique enemies is I'm going to be making idle animations. So saving these GIFs is awesome because I can use these as reference for when I'm like, oh, what should their idle animation be like? So this is the blood folder, and for the blood zone, I have it 2 rooks, so it's a very like tanky buff charging kind of place, and as I was saying, more dodging. So I was gathering some references for big buff dudes. This guy was cool because he was literally covered in blood, so that literally fits perfectly into the whole blood zone. I'm not going to copy this thing exactly, obviously, but it's just like reference. So to me, it's like, okay, maybe if I made like a big buff bloody knight dude for the blood zone, that'd be cool. And then I have no idea what the hell this thing is. A weird ass shadow girl with claw fingers. But I thought it was funny and I thought it was unique, so I was thinking like, okay, maybe I could do something like this for the other rook. That just makes me think of the Abomination from WoW, which is kind of like a rook unit, like super big and tough, and he's already got kind of gross things coming out of his stomach, kind of bloody. So again, just inspiration and reference. So now I kind of came up with this little point, or this idea of, for these 2 rooks for this zone, I could do something kind of like these 2 creatures. And I just basically did that for all the zones. So this is something that could be, I think I have like swarmers for that zone. Yeah, I have a swarmer, so I was thinking, oh cool, this like red bat could be one of the swarmer units where there's just ridiculous amounts of swarmers coming after you, and they're all like bloody bats, or they're like vampire bats, and they'll latch onto you and you gotta shake them off and all that kind of stuff. So it'd be cool to like fight those things while those other buff guys are charging at you. So that's what I had for references for that. Darkness was kind of just going through RO and thinking about what enemies were very damage centric and like looked like shadows, because the notes I had for the darkness zone was 3 knights. So the 3 knights, it's a very offense heavy enemy set, which is why you have the tunic in here to reduce the damage you take. So a bunch of like heavy offense units. You have stuff like, you have these little creepy guys, which actually would work because I have a swarmer too. So if we have a bunch of knights and a swarmer, these little guys could be swarmers. So you'd have a bunch of these little like goblins or whatever coming at you from the shadows, stabbing at your feet, while you have like this super creepy looking Korean horror film ring character coming at you from the shadows. They'll like cut you up with their pokey wings. So I want to say hi to eSpriteX because I don't think you've ever shown your face here, and I think you just started following me today. So thank you for coming and following and talking to me, making me feel important. Yeah, all the Moonlight Flowers and Golden Thief Bug and all that stuff. I remember good old days. Actually, if you've been here before, eSpriteX, I'm sorry for not remembering you. Oh, right, you have been here. Yep, exactly, so I'm sorry. Don't hate me. So I have 3 rooks, or 3 knights for the Darkness Zone, so like Baphomet from RO, that's a creepy looking satyr with a, a big old scythe, which is pretty awesome, so that'd be pretty sweet if that thing was like coming out of the shadows at you and like swinging its scythe around and cutting your head off, so. Yeah, these are kind of darkness demons I was referencing. And then for suffering, and this one's kind of like, this would be like a caster probably, but I don't have any bishop units for the I have not started brainstorming names yet, no. So this would be more like a bishop unit, someone that's like a caster in the back, but I think I used to have a bishop for the Darkness Zone, but I don't now because I had to cut so much for the work to be feasible, so I'm not going to delete it, I'm just going to save it there for future reference, just in case I have time and do want to add a bishop. And then so for Suffering, this was really creepy. I didn't even know this was in Ragnarok. Basically, the whole, like, exorcist upside down creepy zombie lady with an extremely chaotic chest. Fits the Suffering zone very much. Suffering, I'm thinking, like, pain and moaning and crying and creepy to the max. So this very much would be like a swarmer for the Suffering zone, because we have 2 swarmers and 2 bishops, so it's all about insane amounts of enemies with lots of supporting casters. So that's where I have grabbed this one, where it's like this like wispy lady who might just be like a ghost in the back who's kind of buffing the units. Got this necromancer who could like revive the units if you kill them. That's actually a really cool idea if you're fighting swarms and swarms of enemies, but this guy keeps reviving him, so you need to like get past the swarm to kill him to stop him from reviving the swarms. So that's kind of a cool mechanic. Then just like one more, I thought, just like creepy faces coming at you and screaming. What else? Oh yeah, I have a bunch of stuff for all these all the different zones. So this is for Emberlands, so this is a really cool scaly thing. Some little goblin dudes. Nick. I don't think the gifts are gonna work. No. Cool, like fire bat. The Nightmare Terror. Kind of like he's on fire. Pretty cool. Cool, like fire salamander. So, all neat stuff for the Emberlands. Fluid. So, since I have the whole Grinning Army thing, like these fit exactly what I've been thinking for, which are like humanoid crocodiles and stuff. So, this and this other one were like perfect. Like I could totally see myself creating something very similar to these characters for the Fluid Lands. This guy was really cool too. So it's like a turtle general. So he would kind of fit the niche of a rook, because the Fluid Lands is a rook heavy zone. 2 rooks and a bunch of pawns. So this guy would be like a pawn, just like a crab guy running around, just gonna poke at your ankles. Guy could be a little pawn too. Then I have a ton of them for the forest. And that's because Ragnarok Online just has a lot of like natural looking stuff that looks like they'd fit in a forest. So cool, like plant thing. Big old creepy worm. Spider. I'm definitely gonna have spiders in the forest zone. I love how the bosses look in Ragnarok. The animation is really exceptional for pixel art. So to me, that may not be the boss, but it'd be like a rook. So I think I have 1 rook for the forest. Yeah. So it'd either be like that or this big old bear. I killed so many of these things when I used to play. Trying to find lumber or something, or timber. Lumber, timber, something like that. Trying to make a hat for my thief. This little guy was kind of cute. Be a cute little pawn. I don't think I've played enough Castlevania I played the one on DS. I played one of the ones on, it was either DS or 3DS, and I really enjoyed it. I liked how when you killed things, you would like get their power, and then if you got enough or something, you could unlock their weapon. You could unlock their skill. It was very cool mechanic. We got a big old creepy centipede right there, so it'll be there, or at least something similar. And this thing's pretty nasty too. Double-headed centipede. So those are ideas I had for the forest zone. These are pretty cool images I took as reference as well. Foresty infested thing. This would work well for like a demon forest zone because it's got skulls on it and it's creepy. Spiders. Oop. Computer's going a little slow. That was actually just kind of a rare chance that this thing looked like it had eyeballs. Pretty cool. Really cool drawing from this guy. Cute little like porcupine wolf. I've just saved random stuff too from the internet over the years of like, oh, that'd be cool for something like this. Cool little marmoset wolf. Another huge spider. Definitely gonna have spiders in the forest. And then to me, this is like something like a boss. Big old haunted tree. Storm. So since it's a bishop heavy area, this was kind of cool from Ragnarok. This like old caster, wispy caster guy. I didn't get a whole lot for good swarms for Storm, but I know that it's going to be probably like ravens or crows for one. Then another one could be like a bunch of scorpions. But we also have a knight. This harpy was pretty cool. But there's also a bunch of stuff from like SD3 that's pretty sweet for the whole Storm zone. Oh, that was it right here. Do you see these birds? Ooh, excuse me. Got these, I think they're called like needlers or something. They're birds that are basically just like a head with a beak with wings and stuff. It's pretty neat. When you kill them, they turn into feathers. You have kind of like more of a harpy creature here. And then just grasslands and autumn lands is very simple. Like stuff you'd probably encounter outside yourself. So got like snails, snakes, little funny porcupine creature, some woofs, and a little caterpillar, which I actually already did the animation for. It's on the Patreon page. Little kobolds would be kind of cute. Yeah, burning the whole forest is a good idea. I'm thinking lots and lots of spiders. So you can see these characters are all kind of like neutral, like they could fit anywhere, right? Most of them would kind of fit in a forest, but you know, there's going to be trees in the grasslands. Then you got to have the staple mushroom. Mushrooms in everything. Mushroom is in Ragnarok, in Zelda, it's in Secret of Mana. So that's mostly my homage to those games. Got to have a mushroom in there. Let's see. That kind of covers a bunch of stuff I did yesterday and things I'm planning for in the future. Got my enemy list here. So for the last like 23 minutes, I'm just gonna play some Secret of Mana 2. Because I have my little notepad here and I want to take some notes. This is important for me to start looking, as I said on Monday, think like a designer when you're playing games. And it's smart to look at, like, when you play the game, you take, as I said, you take notes, you think about why enemies are in a certain area, how many there are, what kinds they are, and all that sort of stuff. And the only way to do that is to play video games. So that's kind of the cool thing about being a game designer, is your reference for work is to play games. So I'm going to play some of this, and I'll talk about it when I am playing, about how it relates to Gaimoria, how it relates to the notes that I want to take, and you guys can also just BS with me as I play. So this is Seiken Densetsu 3, which is the Japanese title, because it never came to the US. It's an absolute travesty, because this is probably one of the best games, in my eyes, that would have ever come to the Super Nintendo. And it's pretty much Secret of Mana 2. So it just got a massive art overhaul. The design was better. You could like change your character's classes. It was just like better in every way to me. I don't think there's anything really that was worse. So I'm playing this character Duran. He's one of the 6 starting characters you get to choose from. They have a whole intro section. And I've already gone through the intro section with this character, and I just picked up the fairy. And that kind of kicks off the whole start of the game. So you can see there's 2 enemies here. These are technically all pawns, though that mushroom can be considered a strong pawn. In my eyes, you don't really encounter anything that I would consider a knight in this game until super late. That's in line with what I was saying on Monday, of how these older games, the unit design philosophy was a bit more simple, so a lot of these things kind of act like pawns. Wait, what? Oh, right. I have to go see the sadness down here first. Oh noes. Everyone's dead here. There's no corpses. They kept it T-rated, or I don't even know if game ratings existed back then. So this kind of stuff, I think very specifically to how I'm making Gaimoria, just like taking these little notes of how you can run behind this waterfall, and this waterfall like goes into this other river down here, and it's just very, very pretty. So these are just mental notes I always make to myself of very pretty and cool artwork that exists in games, and it always inspires me for stuff I want to do in Gaimoria. This is when you start a game, you can choose up to 3 characters, and this is the character number 2 that I chose. This is probably the strongest physical attacker in the game is Kevin. And at night, he turns into a werewolf. Now he's giving me his little spiel of what happened to him. So if I were to have chosen this character first, then I would have played this. His body felt real hot. He was getting real turned on. And he killed his own puppy. Whee! Now I got me and Kevin here. This is my second character in my party, 2 of 3. Little fairy I picked up is gonna make it so we can progress in the game. I don't have beer, but I have whiskey. This whiskey is freaking disgusting. Oh, I'm getting attacked. Save me. Alright. Oh, I leveled up. This whiskey is really gross. Don't buy it. It's the Kirkland Canadian thing. It's like 20 bucks for an extremely huge bottle. I'll go grab the bottle and show you guys. Ugh. So, this is the bottle. It's freaking huge. It's heavy too. Don't buy this. I have nothing but regret. It was only 20 bucks. And usually the Kirkland stuff is marginal, like it's okay. But it's pretty bad. It's not wild turkey bad, but it's bad. Don't buy it. I'd rather just get Jameson for my cheap whiskey. I'm glad I could spread the word to somebody. I don't know if I said this, but the cool thing about Kevin, my second character, is when it's nighttime, he turns into a werewolf, and his damage is, I think it's like increased by 50 to 100%. So if you ever need to fight a boss, just wait till nighttime and he just murders the shit out of every boss. Because he does like the same amount that you do, except he attacks twice, and then in werewolf form he gets the damage increase, so it's basically one of his attacks, or one press of his A accounts for like 8 attacks of the second strongest character. And that, boys and girls, is how to not balance your game. So you can see I'm swinging and hitting for 14. He's hitting for 32 because he hits twice right there. what is that, 38? So he's already doing double damage, and he's not even in werewolf form. This is my third character. This character's always here because she's small and young and dumb. But if you choose her as your third, you get your third character very soon because she's right here. But if you chose someone else as your third character, then she just goes away. So this is going into her little intro if you decided to play as her first. I think she's only like 10 years old in this game. That's something I always thought was very fascinating in JRPGs, is the characters are absurdly young. Like the average age is like 16, 17. So the heroes of the worlds are always shitty little teenagers. But except for Final Fantasy VII. They were actually in their late 20s and early 30s, like normal people. Then, it's bad. I promise it's bad. Ugh. When Final Fantasy VIII came around, oh man, it's burning my chest, it's so bad. Squall, I think, was 18 or 19. And, all the other characters were like 16, 17, 18, 19. And, you know, I played it when I was a teenager, so I was like, oh, that's cool, they're like my age. But then when you grow up, you're like, teenagers can't do anything. They just whine about things. I'm saying that about myself too, like, when I was a teenager, I did what teenagers did. I don't want to do that. Why do we have to do that? I'm an adult. I should be able to do what I want. Actually, the character Squall in Final Fantasy VIII acts like that. Very, emo. What's the word? There's a word for that mentality. Oh yeah, emo Linkin Park. That's totally what Final Fantasy VIII was. Oh god, you upgraded to Windows 10. Now Microsoft has your soul. So a little note that I've been keeping on track to myself is, so far in the game, we have only encountered 3 enemies. We have encountered the little yellow rabbite, the mushroom, and then the bat. So this has been... I mean, the zones in this game are way smaller than what I would have in Gaimoria, but that's all we've fought so far, is bats, rabbites, and mushrooms. And then the entirety of this cave, no matter where I go, like I'll try and explore all the areas to show you guys. It's just... Oop, I leveled again. Trapped. I need to text my friend real quick. There. Oh, and this actually ties into what I was talking about yesterday of, Supreme asked about respawn rates, and XP and all that, and I had answered that we won't have XP, because it's not going to be an RPG like this, it'll be more like Zelda. But he was asking about respawn rates, and you can see I went into this area, and now it's empty, and when I go back into this area, it's also empty. And I believe I said yesterday that it was a 2-screen respawn. So if I go up to this zone, I think this is a safe spot, so it doesn't count. Oh no. So yeah, there's bats in here. Oh, see, he just turned into a werewolf. Now he's gonna just start murdering everything. I'm gonna play as him. So there's nothing in this room, because I only want one screen away, but this one should respawn. Oh, there we go. There's a 4th enemy, little goblin. There you can see now I'm attacking for 50% more damage as a werewolf. So, you had Windows XP? How did you have Windows XP for 15 years? Oh, Rand's getting hurt. Here, I started at 5. I'll try and have this one go for an hour and a half. There's not a whole lot for me to show you guys this episode. It's just kind of me, as I said, talking about stuff I did with the map, plus playing this, so... I'm not gonna drag it on for too long. I love the music in Secret of Mana 1 and 2. They did it right. Oh, we can ride this thing and it'll fly into the sky. Whee! Little map of the, or view of the world map. So this is, brings up an interesting point. I'm not gonna be having towns in Gaimoria. I think my wife just got home, so my dogs are gonna go crazy, so I'm gonna mute my mic for a couple minutes. And then I'll continue to talk about towns. Are you gonna start talking? Come on, guys. There. So as I was saying, I'm not gonna have towns in Gaimoria because I hated towns in like every game I've played because it stops the flow of the game. You have to like talk to people to figure out what's going on. There's a lot of progression that's locked into the towns. Like you have to talk to this person and then talk to this person to allow you to go to this next zone. And then you have to like buy weapons and armor, and it's just not something I ever enjoyed. And lo and behold, Zelda had like one town, and that was it, ever. In Ocarina of Time, there was more, but with like A Link to the Past on Super Nintendo, they had one. So Link started in his little house south of the castle, and then as you go west, there's one town, and that's the entire town in the whole game. And none of your progression was locked to having to talk to anyone over there. It was all like optional stuff that you could collect for yourself. So Gaimoria is going to be the same way. There's going to be just the one town, that's the town you start in, and all the people you ever really need to talk to or want to talk to will be there, and the rest of the world will just be open for you to explore and do things.
A ferry has arrived from the Holy Land. It is a terrible portent. Humanity dies, yet god beasts will awaken to reclaim this world.
What do you think? Should I do voice acting? Or should I spare you all and not do that ever again? Oh geez. You just told the fairy to put herself inside the priest. I have no idea what Poot will even sound like, but I hope he sounds crazy. That's my idea behind him. Oh, really that bad. Oh. But I have to drink it because I bought it. Oh, you want me to do it all the time? Oh man, what if I did if I did that for 2 hours in a stream, I'm pretty sure people would want to stop listening to me. That's why I got the mic, so I didn't sound terrible from my laptop mic. So it's this third episode of game design stuff. So yeah, but if you water it down, then it just tastes like really bad water. I'd rather... It's weird to say, but I'd rather have bad whiskey than bad water? Watered down bad whiskey is worse? Yeah, no, I... This is another thing I plan on not doing in Gaimoria, is lengthy dialogue. Dialogue and cutscenes and all like this kind of stuff. Like you look at Dark Souls is a very current game, and they deliver all their lore just by you exploring the world. I'm almost done. What's up, Raviolio? You caught the very tail end of it. I'm wrapping up very soon. This is a very short episode. Friday, I am absolutely doing environment painting for sure. Because this would be like episode 3 of game design stuff, so that kind of wraps up my whole mentality of wanting to have episode back-to-back of stuff that's congruent with one another, so this will be the 3rd episode of game and design related stuff, and then starting Friday, I will be doing painting. Oh my god, I'm gonna skip this. Good thing. Come on, Duran, get out of here. There's a little cutie.
I'm gonna go ring you up for here and you should know I'm following.
That was me doing voice acting. Alright, I'm gonna stay the night and save the game. That was not a Bob Ross voice. Bob Ross does not sound terrifying. Alright, saving the game. Cool. Well that was it for a short little episode today. Hour and 20 some minutes. We have things to do, and I didn't want to drag this on too long because I kind of talked about what I wanted to talk about. And if I do this stuff, apparently you guys enjoy my terrible voice acting, so I'll do that in the future. But Friday will for sure be environment painting stuff because that's what I want to move on to next. And it might even be like character sketching and concepting because I had built this huge list of enemies for the zones, right? So I have this list of things, and I have the whole like folder of references I started showing you, so we'll be back to doing some art stuff on Friday. Not animations like we started with, but it'll be like character, creature concepts, and environment painting, so it'll be fun stuff. Maybe I'll do the character and the creature concept stuff first, because then that ties in well with some of the $50 patrons we have. And they're all pretty close to hitting their 3 months, so that means they're all going to be eligible to be in game. So that's a good idea to maybe start doing that stuff, so that'd be kind of fun. Yeah, so maybe I'll do that Friday. But thanks for coming and watching. Short episode, and I'll see you guys Friday. It'll either be between 4 to 5 p.m. Hawaii, 7 to 8 Pacific, 10 to 11 Eastern. And I will talk to y'all later. Toodles. Cherish is weird.
I have a big ass bottle of whiskey by you.